Comcast has recently come out and announced that they are going to be implementing data caps starting next year. And those data caps, so what that is that once you're streaming something online, or you're using the internet in any way, there's data being sent over the network, and for watching a movie, you may use up gigabytes. Your a high definition movie requires gigabytes of data. Right now, for some companies, they've removed data caps, and data caps are by and large a arbitrary thing that are set. The companies it's not really costing them more to provide that bandwidth for their customers. But so many companies don't have data caps. Verizon, for instance, doesn't have a data cap. So you can use unlimited amount of data because they know it's not really, and I come from the tech industry, I've built these some services like this, and so I know that's one of the cheapest things that you can utilize. And so we got Comcast, who is taking subsidies from the US government while simultaneously they are proposing these caps, being placed on. So they're taking money from us to then turn around and use that money to more efficiently, screw over their customers. All right. So let's take a look at this article. This is published in the Daily Poster by David Sirota, former speechwriter for Bernie Sanders during his 2020 campaign. David Sirota, an amazing investigative journalist. So let's take a quick look at this article. Comcast new data fees follow $1 billion in public subsidies. The government-subsidized telecom giant is imposing new levies on customers who are more heavily reliant on the internet during the COVID lockdown. This is by David Sirota and Julia Rock. With millions of Americans trapped at home to protect themselves from a deadly pandemic during the holiday season, the internet is one of the only conduits connecting them to friends, family, and the outside world. Now, Comcast, one of the monopoly corporations that controls the conduit, is extending its fees on bandwidth usage to all 39 states where it operates, even as the company has received hundreds of millions of dollars of public subsidies and new tax breaks. Whether or not those data caps remain permanent could hinge on whether President-elect Joe Biden and Democrats are willing to take action against a corporation that has been one of their major campaign donors. Okay, so Comcast has been one of the major campaign donors to Joe Biden and the Democrats. So you ask yourself if you think that they're going to take action against that corporation. At issue is Comcast's move on Monday that caps home internet usage at 1.2 terabytes of data per month for its customers in 12 additional states, and charging customers up to $100 per month if they exceed the cap. Comcast's move was flagged by Stop the Cap, which discovered that the company had quietly updated language on its website. The new limits, which will take effect in March, are being imposed in states that have given Comcast and its subsidiaries more than $738 million in tax subsidies in the last few decades. Those states include New York, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania, where state and local governments have given Comcast and its subsidiaries $484 million, $132 million, and $79 million in tax subsidies, respectively, according to data from Good Jobs First. In all, Comcast and its subsidiaries, which include NBC and MSNBC, have received nearly $1 billion in state and local subsidies. Additionally, Comcast received $861 million in federal tax subsidies during the first year of the Trump tax cuts, according to the Institute for Taxation and Economic Policy. So they received $861 million in federal tax subsidies during just the first year of the Trump tax cuts. All right. So nearly $1 billion in federal tax subsidies in a single year. This is why monopolies are bad, tweeted Public Citizen, a consumer advocacy organization. Comcast can arbitrarily exploit us for profit during a pandemic just because it feels like it. Meanwhile, Comcast collects tons of tax breaks and government subsidies. Comcast should be broken up. The FCC recommended in March that internet service providers relax their data cap policies in order to, quote, promote connectivity during the pandemic. The recommendation was attached to an FCC campaign to ensure continued internet service throughout the pandemic, called the, quote, Keep Americans Connected Pledge, which Comcast signed. The pledge expired on June 30th. Some pledge that was. Here we have just a shining example of what Naomi Klein, I believe, or was it Nomi Prinz? I think it's Nomi Prinz, actually. So I think it's Nomi Prinz or Naomi Klein, who coined the term disaster capitalism. And this is disaster capitalism in action, right? You have capitalists coming in and preying on working class people, because we know who this impacts, right? This is going to be like working class folks, right? That are going to be the most disproportionately impacted, because what's $100 to a wealthy person versus $100 to somebody who makes, minimum wage, right? That could be half of your paycheck, right, for the week. So, or if you're only part-time employed, underemployed as well. So boom, disaster capitalism coined by Naomi Klein. Thank you for the correction from our super producer, Tammy. So Naomi Klein coined the term disaster capitalism, and that's exactly what we have in play right now, right? This is a corporation coming in and just seeing, hey, there's a pandemic going on right now, right? People are stuck inside. They're forced to use the internet. So what are we going to do? We're going to try to capitalize on that, right? That's the term, right? Capitalize on it. So how do they capitalize on it? They say, all right, we're going to limit people that are using this necessary service. I mean, some people are using the internet right now. You're doing like video conferencing. That's a high bandwidth process, right? So it takes a lot of bandwidth to do video streaming. And you do that when you're, say, at work on a, conference call that people are now forced to do remotely. So now people are stuck at home having to use, remote conferencing software more than ever. And here comes Comcast swooping in, like the vultures that they are, and they see the carcasses there, and they just swoop in and capitalize on these people that are just stuck in a situation that they're forced into. The government has forced people into it. And this is the really messed up thing, is that the government has forced people into this situation of essentially, they did it for public health reasons, but they did lockdowns. They're doing these different government shutdowns. And the problem is they're not keeping people whole simultaneously, right? In other countries, it was so simple. What's the solution to this? Well, the solution was simple. Look at and it's not magic. It doesn't take any kind of magic or anything like that, right? It's absolutely just, all you have to do is look at what's going on around the world, right? Germany is a great example, right? They have 4% unemployment, and they've been able to maintain that throughout the course of the pandemic. Why? Because they enacted legislation that said, if you have to furlough your employees, we will cover 80% of the salary, so that you don't have to furlough. You don't have to furlough anyone. You don't have to fire anyone. As long as you, as a corporation, promise us that you will not fire any of your employees, we, the government, will cover at least 80% of their salary. Now, I would cover 90% or 100%, because most of these people are not making enough anyways, right? And what they want to do, I think, there is like have the company cover some of it, or, that would be fair, I think. Have the company cover some, 10%, whatever it is, that would be fair. That would be fine for larger corporations. For smaller corporations, I would say, or smaller businesses, I would say cover it all and let smaller businesses, help smaller businesses stay totally afloat. So, but you could have come in and said, listen, we are going to guarantee 100% of your payroll, as long as you promise not to fire a single employee, don't furlough, don't fire a single person. And we didn't. The government didn't step in and cover people. So sure, these corporations are terrible and they're greedy and they're awful, but so are the companies, right, that do this as well. I mean, so is the government that has left these people out hanging out to dry as well, right? But in this case, this is a situation where you just have it's just raw greed, right? It's how do we extract more? Now, they already have these crazy fees, and they monopolize. It's a monopoly as well, which we have to recognize. Like, I'm lucky. I'm one of the lucky ones. I live in, a suburb of Boston where we have municipal broadband, and we don't have to pay into Comcast. This isn't going to impact me directly, fortunately. This won't impact me directly, but it's going to impact so many people I know, because here in Massachusetts, Comcast is the main vendor of internet, for internet access. So they're the main internet provider, is Comcast. And this is going to impact a ton of people, not just here in Massachusetts, but around the country. And so, and it's just gross because they're doing this in the middle of a pandemic. They're making sure that they they again just like vultures, they just swoop in during a time when people are forced into a situation, right? So this should be illegal. They shouldn't be able to do this. They should just simply, the government, the FCC should step in and say, ban data caps, just ban data caps. Say you cannot, it's like, putting water limits into people's homes. Like they can't throttle the water that's coming into your house, right? Or the electricity. Like they shouldn't be able to do that. If you go over a certain amount of electricity, imagine them saying that, like, if you used more than X amount of water this month, we're going to stop any, we're going to throttle it, or, charge you these exorbitant prices, right? No, we have regulations on that, and we should regulate this in the same way.